Numbskull News, and today we're going to talk about realignment. Who's responsible for realignment? And I'm sorry, by the way, my voice is a little jacked. I'm kind of sick, down with some COVID apparently. I didn't know that was still around, but tested positive, so I'm at home for a few days chilling out. So while my voice is still making sound, I'm going to make a few videos. But yeah, my last video I did, I kind of got into it a little bit as far as the media companies being responsible for realignment. It's not the big brands. It's none of the conferences. It's the media giants, consolidation, all that. They're responsible for that shit. They're the ones that made the moves. So we're going to break it down. I know some of you are like, oh, no, duh, dude. No, of course. Well, I never stopped to think about it. Most people haven't stopped to really think, like, why is this happening? Is it rising prices? Is it the falling dollar? Was it COVID that caused it? What happened? Well, no. I mean, ultimately it's greed, but, let's just break the shit down. It starts with the monster contracts that the SEC and the Big Ten got from Fox and from ESPN. Now, they didn't have to agree to pay that much money, but they did. They knew in the future it's going to be worth that. Not only that, but you also have these big streamers coming online, and they're going to look to get involved, and that's going to cause prices to yet rise again. But they knew damn well that if you pay the SEC what you paid them, and if you pay the Big Ten what they got paid, then what? Then you're not going to have the money to pay the ACC, the Big 12, nor the Pac-12 what you paid those first two. And I'm talking about, the Big 12 that still has Texas and Oklahoma, and the Pac-12 that still has Stanford, still has Cal, still has the Four Corners, still has Oregon and Washington and USC and UCLA. They knew there was going to be problems. They didn't care. Because when Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC, well, that's better for ESPN. Sure, you pay Texas and Oklahoma more. You're paying another share of that. That's fine. Because they're going to make an ass ton more money with those two brands playing the top brands in the SEC. Hell, even the middle brands, they're going to be making more money. And the same thing with the Big Ten, getting USC, getting UCLA. That's going to be a big deal. Getting Oregon and Washington, that's more premium matchups for them. Makes sense. But let me back it up just a little bit, because it's something interesting that happened. Because not all of it was planned out. I mean, you got to be able to maneuver depending on what happens. So, Texas and OU left. They just figured the Big 12 will fade away, become nothing, whatever. Whether those 8 teams got picked up or not, the Hateful Eight, whether they got picked up or not, they were going to get the treatment of basically what the Pac is getting now. Lucky to get 10, 11, 12 million a year. Or sorry, 10, 11, 12 million a year per school. When that Hateful Eight added Cincinnati and UCF and Houston and BYU, keep in mind, those Big 12 teams had to come out of pocket to get those guys paid. And they had to make substantially less than the other guys in order to come over. Because you talk about pro rata, well, that wasn't a pro rata move. Because that's only for power teams coming in, not for those. Didn't cover that cost. So when you look at what they offered the Pac-12, they offered the Pac-12 exactly what the Big 12 ended up getting, that $31.7 million per school per year. They offered that because that is about all the money they had to offer. I'm just straight up. That's about what they had. That's what they had budgeted. That's all they wanted to spend on what the Pac was. Now, they offered that after USC and UCLA left. And they, like I said, they offered them that first. And then these morons said, wait, we're worth more than that. You know what? And I can't even call them morons completely, because Oregon and Washington, they weren't going to accept that. They weren't going to sign a long-term deal in that. Ultimately, they wanted to get into the Big Ten. Even at a half share, they wanted to do that. They'd rather take 31.7 from the Big Ten than from the Pac-12, because they knew on the next media rights deal, they'll be making full shares in the Big Ten, and that's what's going to happen. But let's look at what happened. The Pac-12 turned it down. Said, you know what? We're going to go on the open market and see what we can get. And then Brett Yormark called up, said, hey, let's negotiate early. We'll take exactly what they turned down. Now, people just leave the story at that. Oh, brilliant move by Brett Yormark, and that's it. And then the Pac failed to get a deal done on the open market. No. ESPN and Fox decided to do that and give them that money at 31.7. You know why they decided to do that? Because they knew damn well there's nobody else out there in the open market willing to throw in the money. Now look, these big streamers are coming. But at that point in history, they weren't willing to go out there and gamble that much. Think about what that Apple deal was. That's one of the big streamers. That Apple deal was for roughly $20 million per team on a base, and they had to earn the rest of it. All right? Horrible deal. Because what's the old saying? A bird in the hand is more than two in the bush. Well, that Apple deal was two in the bush. The bird in the hand was what? 31.7 guaranteed from the Big 12. And that's what the Four Corners got. Because both ESPN and Fox knew if they gave that money to the Big 12, that would eventually incentivize these Pac-12 schools to either go to the Big 12 or go to the Big 10. And then both of them can wash their hands and say, hey, we had nothing to do with the failure of that league. That was just the market, and that's what happened. So did they engineer the failure of that conference? Kind of, sort of. And like I said, the two biggest brands in that Pac-12 situation was Oregon and Washington. They were always going to go to the Big Ten. They were always going to go to Fox as long as they got the invite, as long as they got the all clear from the Big Ten presidents. That's where they were going to go. And they didn't need a full share to do it. That's where they wanted to play. Long term, it's best for them. Now, you may say, well, if they never got in, the Pac would have survived. Whoa. ESPN offered a big fat bonus to Oregon and Washington to come into the Big 12. If that invite to the Big 10 never came, they were going to get them to the Big 12. Even if it was only temporarily, they would not have played 5 years with the Pac. They would have played 5 years with the Big 12, then went to the Big 10. That's what was going to happen. That's the reporting that got put out there, and I know a lot of people forget about that shit. So what does that tell you about realignment and the Big 12? There was a curveball thrown at them with the Pac-12. Then they found in the Big 12 with Brett Yormark people willing to do business, and they found an opportunity. Because yes, you don't have to be a blue blood or a tier 1 school to make money for these media partners. If you're making the right money, they can make big money off of you. So what is the Big 12 now? And this also goes to why the Big 12 rebuffed this insanely great offer from Memphis. And it is an insanely great no-risk offer from Memphis that I was kind of a little taken aback by. I didn't like the fact that we just turned that down. I'm not saying we just. They talked to a lot of people for a year. Memphis people did. And finally, the offer was put. It was thought about. No votes, no nothing. Just, nah, not interested. That's what I was a little, disappointed about in my conference, the Big 12. The two biggest players in realignment is ESPN and Fox. They both invest in the Big 12. They didn't want Memphis. And like everybody told me in the conference, everyone's waiting on the ACC. Those media companies are going to do the same thing to the ACC that they did to the Pac. And it is nothing against the ACC or any ACC fans. It's nothing personal. It's only business. They're going to take your biggest brands. Now, I've been saying what I've said about UNC forever. They're not going to one of the big two. They'll be in the Big 12. I still feel that way. I'm the only one that feels that way. I could be very wrong about that. But whether it's UNC that's included, whether that's UVA that's included, whether that, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Georgia Tech. The SEC is getting 2 teams. The Big Ten, more than likely, is getting 2 teams. Maybe just one. I don't know. It all depends. But that's at least 3 to 4 of your biggest brands that represent half your viewership for the entire conference are going to be gone. And then whether it's in 2030 or 2036, whatever value is left with tier 2 schools in the ACC will be moved to the Big 12. And I know there's jackasses in my comments that never want to believe that. Well, what's the point of a bigger, broader Big 12? Money. Because you have ESPN and Fox. 2 people sharing the cost. This gives Fox all the content they could possibly need. It also gives ESPN all the content that they can currently enjoy in the ACC. They can just consolidate that in to the Big 12. So you're not having to deal with 2 different partners and all these different people. You can deal with one. And you put it all here inside the Big 12, which means we're probably going to go to at least 24 teams. 24 is the floor here. Why? It's an easier deal to just pay one conference. Just one. And then that's a shared cost with another media partner. And by the way, you're also licensing content to WBD. What's important for ESPN and Fox is to have some level of control over that content so they can use it as they need it. And let's put it this way. Whenever you got 2 blue bloods, 2 huge brands going at it, that game gets high ratings and those media partners make a nice chunk of money on it. Okay. Whenever Pitt plays Wake Forest, you might as well put that shit on the ACC network. When Pitt plays Boston College, you might as well put that shit on the ACC network. However, when Pitt plays West Virginia, that gets good ratings. That's 2 tier 2 brands. They actually pull together a nice rating. And you can put that on a regular network in a decent time slot. You're not going to put it above a lot of Alabama games or Ohio State games, but you want it on your network. Whether that's at noon, whether that's 3 o'clock, 7 o'clock, it doesn't matter if it's on main ESPN, ESPN2, if it's on Fox, if it's on ABC. You want that because you can sell that. And let's don't stop there. When Pitt plays Colorado, that's worth more money. When Pitt plays Utah, that's worth more money. When Pitt plays TCU, it's worth more money than playing some of those lower brands out there in the ACC. Georgia Tech, I think they play Colorado. That's going to be badass ratings for both. I think week 1, I think that game's week 1. That's a hell of a lot better than Georgia Tech playing one of the lower brands in the ACC. Hell of a lot better than playing SMU or Stanford or Cal. It just is. So those tier 2 brands that still have pretty decent ratings, it's better for them to have better weekly matchups. Now, is it better when they play Clemson? Is it better when they play Florida State or Notre Dame or Miami? Yeah, it is. That's why those brands aren't coming to the Big 12. Dummy, they're going to one of the Big 2 conferences. But if you get the best tier 2, because there's several tiers in these schools, in these programs. Not everyone can be tier 1. But if you get the best of the tier 2 into the Big 12, you get better matchups every week. And it's worth more. It's worth more to the media partners. So that's why the media partners want a bigger and broader Big 12. Just answer that question. Just to answer that question from dumbasses in my comments. Next thing, ACC. It's going to get ripped apart because when you lose your top brands, you get devalued out the ass. And here, look, some of those lower brands of the ACC, ESPN doesn't want to pay you. They want to pay you what they're going to pay Oregon State and Washington State. That's why they're not in the Big 12. Because ESPN and Fox decided those two programs aren't worth 31.7. Or they would be here. You can tell me they got good ratings. I would agree. Good programs. They work their ass off. They invest in their programs. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with Oregon State and Washington State, but damn it. The media partners don't want them. They want them on a lower level. They want them in the G6. They want to get that money off the books. It's what it is. So yeah, the media partners are making moves, and then when an opportunity opens up, like the Big 12, they didn't see that coming, but when it came, when they can move from the Pac to the Big, they made the move. The overall central time zone just works out better too. It's worth more. I mean, there's value to having late night football on the West Coast. Absolutely. But it's not more valuable than central time zone games. And so you're going to get more Utah games playing in the central time zone than you would with them in the Pac. So now their content becomes more valuable. Can you understand that? You should. You freaking should. And their home games, well, hey, there's some late night fare for you. Or there's some prime time games for you if you need it. Not a problem. But overall, I'm using this to illustrate why the Big 12 has survived. It's not all because of what Brett Yormark did. It's because the media partners saw the value. They saw the future. Hey, we can't just, there's not enough tier 1 programming for everybody. There's just not. But we got quite a bit of the tier 2 stuff. And if we can consolidate a lot of the best tier 2 stuff into the same conference, we can get better matchups and make more money on it. Will we spend more on it? Obviously. But you spend money to make money. You got Louisville. When you got Louisville taking on Kansas, that's just a better deal than Louisville versus SMU. All right. And if I'm right, if I'm the one person that's saying it happens to be right about UNC coming to the Big 12, UNC versus Kansas in football will be a freaking banger. It's a tier 2 brand banger. Because UNC taking on LSU, what is that? Does anyone give a flying shit? No, because LSU's going to truck their ass. How about UNC versus Arkansas? Would that matter? No. And more than likely, Arkansas is going to truck their ass too. that's the reality of it. Does anyone give a damn about UNC versus Purdue if they went to the Big Ten? No. No one cares who wins that game because at the end, neither one of them are getting to the playoff. Same thing in the SEC. Vanderbilt versus UNC. No one's going to watch that shit. I know what you're saying. UNC versus Houston. Who's going to watch that? Big 12 people will watch that. Yeah. Right now, it's about trying to get more North Carolina people watching than Big 12 people watching. That's the, And look, UNC isn't like horrible ratings. They're kind of middle of the pack of the ACC. Maybe a little higher when you take out the top brands. A little higher when you take them out. They'd be right in the middle of everything as far as ratings, TV ratings go in the Big 12. But yeah, there would actually be big time, some big time games for UNC. UNC versus West Virginia. You understand that could be a whole new rivalry. The haves and have-nots bowl. The paupers versus the pompous. Whatever name you want to give it. That could be a hell of a game. So, for people that think that I'm just taking a dump on UNC all the time, I'm not even taking a dump on the ACC. I think they've handled things about as well as you possibly could. Better than the pack. But the reality is, there's no future. There's no future. I mean, there is till 2036. That'll be the absolute end of everything. But, there's, like I said, there's an expiration date. And I know it sounds mean and all that, but that's because I'm curt. I'm to the point. I'm not trying to give you all these pleasantries. I'm just going to give you what's going to happen. You can deal with it or not. But in the end, the streamers are coming. And one of the things that I thought before is, would not shock me to see Amazon actually just outright buy ESPN. It wouldn't shock me at all to see that one day. Like, within the next 5 years, to see that. Because when these guys decide to invest fully in sports and really see the money value there and really go at it, and they already do see the money value. Amazon sees the money value. They're making money with the NFL. They're paying a lot, but they're getting a lot. So, I can foresee some big-ass moves in the future by these huge streamers. And I mean, they make and are worth way more money than a Disney ever thought about. That ain't no shit. And I don't give a damn if it's Netflix. I don't care if it's Apple or Amazon or Google. They're all way bigger than freaking Disney. And they're on the way. All right. That winter is coming. So that's a whole nother video. Right now, I'm not getting into all that. I'm shocked my voice has held out for this long. So, having said all that, the media controls all this. The media companies, the big ones, control it all. So get used to that. And sooner or later, the streamers will control it. Anyway, thanks for watching this crap, and I'll be back with some more crap later. Bye.